All right, JoeyRitter.com, on Twitter at Joey Ritter. Just when you thought our guest list couldn't get any better, we get Robin Wilson from the Gin Blossoms. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Hello, Joey.
Now, right off the bat, let's just mention the Under the Sun tour, and this hits Philadelphia Saturday, August 3rd at the Electric Factory Outdoors. I've been to the Electric Factory a million times, but I didn't even know they did outdoor shows.
I didn't either.
So this is pretty exciting. I'm all in for this. You got Sugar Ray, Smash Mouth, and I believe Vertical Horizon and Fastball. Are they on all the dates? Their font is different than yours.
Yes, that is correct. That's the five band bill that we're going out with for 37 shows, I think.
Wow. Now, is this kickstarted by the bands, or do you just get a phone call one day that say, "Hey, you guys want to do this tour"?
Actually, it was us and Sugar Ray got together and put it together, and Smash Mouth was the first call, and then it snowballed from there.
Gotcha. Now, Sugar Ray and Smash Mouth, very, very summery bands. I can't ever picture Sugar Ray playing in the wintertime. Now, the Gin Blossoms, on the other hand, you can see them all four seasons, which begs the question, which is your favorite season to tour?
Uh, well, I guess it's summertime. That's the traditional time to tour, and that's when the most shows are available. So that's when we get the most work. But any time we get an opportunity to be on an organized bill like this, I would take it.
Yeah.
Any time of the year. And this year we did a tour in the dark of winter, right up the East Coast, the coldest part of the country, and we did it in the middle of January. And everybody brought warm jackets and shivered our way in and out of the venues and made it work. And I was just glad to be on tour. But to answer your question, I guess yeah, summertime is the traditional time. I always tell people we're like those fishermen on the Discovery Channel. We got to go out when we're in season and get every fish we can.
Exactly. Now, yeah, I mean, it's always a different vibe. I mean, part of me loves the summertime shows, but I feel as the band, you have the audience's attention better in the wintertime because everybody's indoors and they're paying attention. Summertime, everybody's trying to hook up and do this and that. But, it's always a different vibe. But it's going to be a good tour nonetheless. I'm all in. I will see you there August 3rd. Now, there's a tremendous video of you on YouTube back in 1989, and I know you've been asked about this in other interviews, but it's basically you in your early 20s, and you're working at a record store. You're talking about we wish these Arizona clubs would promote more local shows. It'd be great, and that'll be $15, sir, for the record. And it's just this great video because it's very innocent, and you have no idea you're about to have all this success and sell tons of records. So I like to ask a lot of time travel questions. If 2013 Robin could go back and talk to 1989 Robin, what would you talk to him about?
Wow. Well, I would probably start with grooming. Honestly, I think I was a slob back in those days. I would start with that kind of stuff. Basically, I would want to pass on the same kind of things I want to talk to my son about. I would want to give myself information to get out of unforeseen social scenarios. I would give myself advice about women and marriage.
That's a big one for me too. That's
Parenthood and things like that. The basics. I would. I have a list of things that I want to tell my son before he's 18 years old. Things about my life that I can't really tell him yet.
How old is he now?
He's 11 now.
Okay.
And I think I would probably try and tell my 22-year-old self those same things.
What's something that you're dealing with your 11-year-old son? He's in school and he's is he talking to girls now, or is it, what stage is he that you have to be a father and teach him new things? Where's he at?
Okay, we're it's it's relevant that you brought this up because, or you asked that, because I have recently, in an effort to find ways to turn him into, more of a mature person and to help him along a little bit, I've decided on, in a few different ways to allow him to act like a big kid and a teenager. And one of those ways is I'm allowing him to watch South Park. And
Okay.
so now I find myself in the precarious scenario of having to explain what anal sex and things along those lines are to my 11-year-old son. And I've been very clear with him about what sex is. I don't want him to be confused at all. I've explained it. I've shown him pictures on the internet, and I don't want him to be confused at all, and I don't want him to think that I'm afraid to talk about these things.
So
And,
does that go over well because you're the singer of a band and he gives you a little more leeway? Because if I was 11 years old and my dad was trying to show me pictures of what, maybe it would be different because I never you weren't exposed to the internet at that age. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to talk to my dad about those kind of things.
well, I was taught about these things at a young age by my mother, who was sort of a free spirit, and I think it helped. Otherwise, they're just going to make it up themselves. And he hangs out with this gang of kids right across the street. This is kind of their room. This is a room I built for my son and his friends to play video games. And they, boy, they when they get together, they can't wait to share the latest curse words or the latest insults or the most salacious things that they've discovered over the course of the last week. Boy, they can't wait. They're not even together yet. They're starting to shout across the street, "You're never going to believe what I saw," you know. And so I'm trying to speak with them about how to understand what he's hearing from his friends and what he's seeing on television. And anyway, that's a good example of the kind of thing that I talk about with my son.
Now, when he's with his friends, do you kind of overhear him and he doesn't know that you can hear him and you just hear the things that they talk about? Is it just all over the place?
Uh, they kind of know I'm around. They're loud. They know they're loud. When they're down here, this is downstairs in my house. It's just shouting and screaming and Halo matches, and it's mostly arguing about video games. It's when they're outside on their scooters that they're talking about girls and curse words and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't hear as much of it, but I get what's going on, and my son, he ends up feeling guilty about knowing all this new stuff, and so he'll end up telling me, what the other guys said. They taught me this word, or we were talking about, last year it was porn. Four 10-year-old boys discovered porn, and so yeah, I had to explain what that was, and then of course, get together with the other parents and come up with rules. And one of the first things they tried to do, the other parents, in response to our 10-year-olds learning about porn, they wanted to ban video games immediately. That was their knee-jerk reaction. Well, let's get rid of the video games. And I I had to stand up on behalf of the video game industry. No, that's not the problem. And I've been waiting my whole life to share video games with my son and his friends. I don't want that. I don't want that taken away. I did promise them, to limit the time and the type of games that we play together, but
Sure.
I wouldn't let them cut that out. But anyway,
Is
the kids, they talk, and they're 11-year-old boys. It's like an episode of Porky's.
is it
Or,
right? Exactly. Is that a struggle to deal with other parents? Because my daughter just turned 1, and I haven't really had to socialize with other parents yet. and I don't know if I'm looking forward to it because I don't want to get into a situation where they're trying to shun my daughter's friend from doing something that I would allow, and then I have to have that awkward exchange. I'm not looking forward to those moments.
I think it's like anything else in life. You'll confront those situations the way you would any other social scenario, and some of them are more precarious than others. I wasn't the slightest bit afraid to go speak with my neighbors about this, but again, I was more afraid about what they were going to do, and a couple of them, one set of parents, they were really shocked. And I'm like, listen, we had what we called a Playboy fort when I was 10 years old. So this is really normal.
Yeah, I was pretty sheltered. I did not have access to anything. I didn't have any friends that had Playboys or anything like that. I mean, I was pretty much like, 17. I was on my way out of high school when all that was, the internet was blowing up and all that. But I have the opposite problem now because now you just have one son. Okay.
Yes.
Now I have a daughter, and it's going to be the opposite for me, trying to get boys not away, but to like filter out the noise and when, she starts to date and bring them home and all that stuff and all that emotional stuff. Like,
Yeah.
do you, because okay, so what is he, sixth grade?
Fifth grade. Yeah.
Fifth grade. So that's a perfect age. You start like going to dances and stuff. Um, are you giving him advice on girls? He's saying like, get in there, make it
Oh,
happen.
I'm giving him advice on all types of social situations, and he's an only child, so he kind of needs help. And as far as girls, I'm not trying to push him in any one direction, and I'm just giving him advice on how to deal with the situations that do arise. It's really not too big of a deal, but like he's got a friend at school who's a girl, and so some of the other kids tease him about having a girlfriend, and so we speak about this, and I try to tell him how to act and what to say, to the other kids who are giving him a hard time. And
They tease him for having a girlfriend because they can't get girls themselves and they're jealous.
uh, that could be it. It's also normal, but it's also so painful. Fifth grade, 11 years old. That's a tough age. It really is. So anyway, I got my hands full. Uh,
Well,
I'm only. I mean, I guess I'm only with him maybe half the time, not even half the time. But usually, when I am here in New York, it's to be with him, and that's kind of all I do when I'm here.
yeah.
So this is one of the rare days where I'm here in New York in my home, and he's not with me. He's with his mom tonight. So
Okay, so you live in New York, and that's okay. Because I wasn't sure, because I know you have a studio in Arizona, and I wasn't sure, what time zone you were going to be in and all that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, actually, you're going to kill me for saying this because now it's all coming back to me. But when I was your son's age is exactly when New Miserable Experience hit.
All right.
So I can remember, going to the CD store and they sold the CDs in that long box,
Right.
and getting the CD
That,
then.
that's actually what it was called, a long box. Again, I worked in record stores all through the '80s, and originally those racks in every record store, they were built for 12-inch records, and then all of a sudden we had to fill those with CDs, and so you had to come up with a way to make a CD fit into a rack. So
Okay.
that's why they created the long box.
So
And
you learned something new because I had no. That seemed like the silliest packaging to me.
it was really unnecessary, but it was because the stores already had racks built to hold 12-inch records.
Now, was it just a coincidence that your song was in the Empire Records movie, or because you'd grown up working in record stores, you had a thing for them? Was it a coincidence, or
It was a coincidence, but it was a pretty extreme coincidence because uh, all through the 1980s, I worked at three different record stores in the Phoenix area, and that was, that was my youth, and it was a pretty cool way to spend the '80s, I will say. And there were more than a few times that I was sitting around there at the record store thinking this would make a pretty decent, like John Hughes movie or whatever. And again, the coincidence goes even further. The girl who wrote the movie worked at Tower Records in Phoenix, and I worked at Tower Records in Tempe. And one of our guys, Scott Johnson, he did work at the Tower Records out in Phoenix. And so it was a major coincidence that not only did we get this, that we got the song in this movie, but it was written by a girl from Phoenix. She worked at Tower Records. We had a lot in common.
Sure.
When I first met her and I found all that out, I thought it was pretty extreme series of coincidences that lined us all up. But at least in the long-term scheme of my life, it sort of makes perfect sense that our song was a big part of, an iconic movie like that.
Yeah, it was certainly symbolic of the time. Now, I, I really, this is something I've been wondering for a long time regarding performances on TV, because you've done, Letterman, Leno, all those shows, but it's tough for a band to play on TV because you're kind of at the mercy of the guy, mixing the vocals. Sometimes the vocals can be too loud and the guitars aren't loud enough. Do you approach your vocals differently on TV than you do playing in a club or something like that?
No, not really, because for me, anytime I perform live, the monitors are different. We rarely go out with the same rig. This summer will be one of those exceptions where I'm singing through the same monitor rig every night. So I never really know what to expect. And where we started in clubs with one monitor for the whole band, it's like the Beatles in Hamburg. You see the Beatles on stage and you wonder how could they hear anything, and that's where we started too, with basically the same level of production. So if you cut your teeth there, you can handle whatever's really thrown at you. And so I just kind of go into autopilot and sing with confidence and make sure I'm moving with confidence and crossing my fingers secretly that my bandmates are kicking ass as well. And as far as the mix goes, that's a crapshoot, but with most of the big shows, these guys have experience, at Saturday Night Live or the Tonight Show. I mean, they're used to mixing
Right, right.
every
At that
single
level,
time. They've got U2 or, somebody coming in. And we were fortunate recently, we were on a VH1 production in Hollywood, and the sound man for Smash Mouth was there, and he did our sound for the production. It was amazing, and he's a really great sound man. I only met him briefly, but he did an amazing job. And then I guess I had to get whisked off to the airport to go mix Enrique Iglesias. And when I heard our recent performance on VH1, just even coming out of my laptop, I thought it was the best sounding live performance that we've ever done. And to me, it sounded like a fully produced record. And I was really blown away. And I thought we kicked ass.
Now, speaking of sound men, I can remember playing in bands and stuff, and it always seemed like the sound guy at the club was the most miserable guy, kind of understandably, because he has to sit through, different bands every night, and, I don't know, just maybe some nights you don't feel like doing it. But did you feel like when you toured kind of early on in your career that you had to kind of make friends with the sound guy before the show so that you guys sounded good?
No, the key is just to never piss them off, just to stay out of their way and to do things quick, just to be professional. And, they don't want to chum up to you. They know you just got out of a van and, they know what you're all about.
Was there ever a situation maybe with your guitar players where, I always know that my guitar players didn't like to turn down their amps. They thought that the tone was a certain way if the amp was a certain volume, but the sound guys, they want to...
you're right. They do say that, and technically, it really is. You do wish that they could sort of suffer sometimes for the greater good, but no.
Got to find that happy medium, right?
Yeah, no, not if you're a guitar player. You just put it where you want and say, "That's what I do."
Right. Now, on your website, it said that you recently, a couple years ago, performed in Iraq.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that experience? Because I can't even imagine what's going through your head as you're. First of all, how long does it take to fly over there?
Oh, it was like a 14-hour flight. It's pretty grueling. But actually, we flew into Iraq from the Philippines. That was about an 8-hour flight, and then the flight home from to JFK from Iraq was like 14 hours. That was grueling, nightmarish, nightmarish experience. The worst flight I was ever on. God. Um,
What, what made it so bad? Just from
excuse me. Well, it was the flight was packed and the people were filthy and the food was terrible and it was just the grossest flight I've ever been on. You know, it's just like imagine what those trains you see in India that are completely covered in people on the outside. All right, imagine packing one of those trains inside an airplane and then giving them really gross food.
yeah, I'm imagining Jewel of the Nile. You ever?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was terrible. But the trip to Iraq was a really inspiring deal for me personally. I really enjoyed it, and much like any other tour, I tried to stick to my routine of sleep and exercise and eating at certain times of the day so that I can perform well. But there was a lot of grueling travel in that one. Every single morning we were up at like around 4 a.m. We're traveling with the military, so we had to go sit on these tarmacs and wait for a military plane to show up. And anyone who's ever been on a USO tour knows, you know, it's just kind of sucks. There's a lot of extra sitting around, and there's already enough sitting around in the touring business, and then you throw in the military way, and there's even more sitting around. And you're sort of restricted. There isn't a lot of entertainment, and you're in the barracks, and it's kind of boring and all of that. But when you're performing for hundreds of Americans who are out there for months, it's very inspiring. And I really stepped up and tried really hard to get everyone into the show and make them a part of the show. And it's a very stiff environment. It's not like watching Platoon or something like that where they're all just going crazy. They're really stiff. They're kind of nervous. They don't know how to act around you, and they're sitting there next to their commanding officers. So it's hard to get them off these little bleachers that they set up
Yeah.
in front of the stage and just like get them to move. And it's a lot of work to get them up. But that was my mission every night was to make them feel like they were actually at a rock concert. And
So
I just
you did multiple performances and
yeah, we did 5 shows around Iraq, and it was hard work, and it wasn't necessarily a lot of fun, but I was really proud to be a rock singer and to have that be the one thing that I could do to contribute.
yeah, I mean,
And so I thought, well, I'm gonna do that as absolutely well as I can and try not to cause any trouble and so anyway, I got through it and it was all right. It was a fun time.
so what do you even say in between songs? Because I imagine you can't, treat it like the Sugar Ray crowd.
But actually, you do it exactly the same way. I mean, I don't really remember. I play all that by ear for the most part. I guess sometimes I develop a something of a routine where there'll be certain things I say at specific moments of every show. But for the most part, I just try to wing it and just communicate off the cuff and try to make them feel like this is just something that's happening at their house.
Hmm.
And it's as much theirs as it is mine. I'm just the guy with the microphone all the time.
Were you always good, doing that banter in between songs all through your career?
It's yeah, I suppose so. I was never afraid of it. I mean, you get into moods, and sometimes you go through phases where there were phases where I didn't really feel like talking too much. Um, but for the most part, I try and just sort of wing it, and I hope that I'm engaging and funny. And a lot of my best lines ever have been delivered to me by Bill, our bass player. He'll say something kind of under his breath, and I'll grab the microphone and say it to everybody because oh, it was so great. And then there's other times that some of the funniest things I've ever said anywhere were, live on stage. And so, um, every once in a while I'm inspired and the moment hits you and you just have the absolute perfect thing to say. And it just pulls the trigger on the whole show and brings everybody up. And I'm lucky I have that in me sometimes. I'm
Yeah,
not as good as Mark McGrath though.
yeah. Well, who is as good as Mark McGrath? I
At
mean,
talking with a microphone, very, very few people.
I mean, we're talking Access Hollywood over here. But I have that argument a lot with people because I generally like to hear what the band has to say in between songs.
Yeah.
And I think I'm in the minority because people are like, I just want to hear the songs. I didn't pay to hear what the band has to
I
say.
agree. I don't think you're in the minority. I think most people prefer to have some communication. I think that's what people are really there for. It's not just to hear the hits, it's to feel like they were actually in the same room with people who played that song that they heard a billion times.
Yeah.
And to have some moment that was singular to that event and that they, so that makes them feel connected. And uh, one way that we do that is Jesse and I can sort of banter at each other, and it's nothing too brilliant, but we'll just sort of chat at each other, and sometimes things sort of arise that we can talk about. There's something out there in the crowd, a funny hat or some bullshit. Jesse was that's that's it. And Jesse's other thing is like picking on the local sports team. Boy, he loves to get people riled up by saying something mean about a local sports team.
Oh, he has to do that in Philadelphia because I would love to see the results of that one.
Yeah, that's a pretty hardcore sports city. I'm glad to hear we're coming back there. I'm looking forward to that. I got this tattoo there on South Street, so
I need you to go a little bit to. Yep.
it says, "Is this the real life?"
Nice.
And then over here in Ohio, I got, "Is this
That's
fantasy?" But anyway,
perfect.
I always love Philly. It's one of the great cities
It's.
here.
I mean, admittedly, I've never seen you guys live. When you went on your hiatus, that's right at the time my parents started letting me go to concerts. So I've never seen it, and I have seen Sugar Ray. I was trying to impress a girl, and it didn't work out for me. But that was back, I don't know, year 2000. I think I saw Sugar Ray. So it's going to be a great show again. August 3rd, Saturday, Electric Factory. Excited to
Yes.
see what this outdoor nonsense is all about, but people can go to jimblossoms.net, get all the information. Actually, there is a website under the Sun Tour. .com and on
I've
Twitter
been
at
meaning
Jim
to
Blossom.
check that out, by the way. I've been meaning to visit under
Very
the.
good graphic design. Whoever they hired for that, they know what they're doing.
Well, actually, I designed the logo for the tour, so I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm hoping they.
What if I said negative things about it? Like it's the worst logo I've ever seen.
I would have said, "Wow, well, that's interesting," because I designed the logo, and I feel like I did a pretty damn good job. But anyway, that's one of my hobbies is graphic arts, as you can see behind
Well,
me.
yeah, it's yeah. So is that just improvised, or did you have a vision and kind of go for it there?
What's behind me
Yeah.
here?
Yep.
This I had something in mind actually, yeah, because I knew how I was going to paint this room, and it actually started with this wall over here.
Oh, nice.
And I knew I wanted to screw up a Union Jack, and then I thought, well, then I should do the other wall like a messed up American flag and put lyrics all over it, just like my tattoos. And so that's what I did. And then on these other walls, I've got the lyrics to my favorite songs, like written. So it took me about a week to paint this room, but and I had it sort of pretty well mapped out in my head, but of course all the actual splattering and um, graffiti and stuff had to be sort of improvised and touched up as I went.
Yeah,
So.
see, we should end on that because that is perfect, but I'm going to do this anyway. I got my $12 curtain from Target here. I've got a iguana cage that I married into. I'm going to be like 45 years old, and this thing's going to still be alive. But I do have my two guitars over here. That was my first guitar, the Squire Strat. And if you can see, I'm actually a bass player, and then I got my Fender Jazz that I haven't touched in forever over there. So
Looks exactly like every apartment I ever had.
perfect.
And let me just go out on a limb and say that I'm glad I own a home now. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if I can agree with that. There, I bought my house in 2008, exactly right before everything crashed. So
Yeah.
it's like waiting for things to turn. But that's a whole nother discussion.
There is that. Yeah. Well, I'm about to go through it again. I've got a home. I got to sell my house in Arizona. So
Yeah. So
wish luck.
gotta bite it. All right. Hey, Robin, I appreciate you doing this, and I'll see you August 3rd.
August 3rd. All right, Joey, a pleasure. Thank you for contacting me and inviting me onto your show, and best wishes. And you've got my phone number, so text me before the show and remind me that you're coming, and I'll get you tickets.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
All right.